Welcome to a dialogue on accountability in the digital age. A dialogue with representatives of a global, multi-stakeholder community.
And I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Rosa Maria Delgado. Rosa, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frits.
Allow me to introduce Rosa Maria Delgado. She's a native from Peru, but temporarily living in Switzerland, and is an independent ICT strategy consultant and a domain name expert. She has a very strong and long track record in domain names and has worked on a number of organizations, including CETA, the Internet Society, ITU, and the IP version 6 task force. And she helped create the Peruvian, Swiss, and Egyptian IP6 task forces. She's the president of the IP6 Forum in Peru and a member of the International Cyber University Advisory Board, and a recognized world leader in IP6, and currently working with the national government of Peru on its AI strategy. So Rosa, again, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Frits. Good morning.
As mentioned in my introduction, you are a domain name expert. Makes me curious, how does one become a domain name expert? What was your path to get there?
Well, it was very interesting because it happens that in 2000, before 2000 actually, we had .com, .net, .org, and I think it was not enough for the internet community, which it was growing a lot, and also it was really, there was no really a crystallization of the personality of companies or entities into the domain name, because domain name is actually a market, is a presentation of you, of the company, of the country. And so then I entered to work in CETA, and it was just when the United States and actually started to think in enlarge the domain names system, and I4ADA was a possibility, one domain name for the industry, which was I4ADA. We actually first thought about air, air transport, air thing, and it was not taken because air belongs to everybody, as we say by ICANN. And I4ADA was more close. And it actually was Binton himself. He said, I think I4ADA will be better than air. And that's it. Of course, I'm an engineer for background. I have a background from Peru and also in England. So I thought it was really good to have at that point of time to go, not only was the domain name system as a technical person, but also as a political thing. It was really taken as a really very political issue. Again, the emerging countries are not represented. At that time, we thought in many names, and we went for I4ADA. And many other names were created. Now has stopped the process by ICANN because actually there are many domain names. But I think the thing will start again, and the future of a domain name will be cities like .rio. In Latin America exists only .rio, Rio de Janeiro, New York, .mad, .madrid, .amsterdam. I think there is .amsterdam, I'm not sure right now. But so it is about the smart cities will be really help a lot to having their own domain names.
Okay, so that was just a matter of being at the right place at the right moment that you got involved in this whole concept of domain names.
Exactly, because I never thought before to do it. It was just the moment came and we were very interested. And Geneva was a big player into the domain system development. So then why not?
Geneva as a city or Geneva as a location where we have a lot of UN agencies?
Well, Geneva as a city, but especially because United Nations, because ITU was playing a really big role into this developing of the new space. And we had some the white letter, the green letter, etc. So then that was started all the international community, of course, they didn't want to meet in the United States because we were trying to get out of this monopoly actually of domain names. So the best place at that moment was decided that Geneva was the best place because ITU was there. And actually ITU at the end was not really a player. So many things happened. I think it was very interesting. I've been very interesting always in started new thing. And that was something completely new, political, technical, opportunities for people, etc. So no, it was a great moment, great moment.
Okay. Now, just to take the audience with that development, we all heard about this, but just get a little bit of background. Now, when DARPA at the time developed the internet, they also developed the IP version 4 protocol, and they had roughly 4 billion addresses to be designed.
Exactly.
I can imagine at the time that seemed like enough. Well, very quickly it became apparent we need more. So the IP version 6 allows for, I can't even pronounce that a number, but 3 times 10 over 38. That's just
billions and trillions.
Billions and billions and billions of addresses. Even that's such a high number. Do you think that is enough for how the internet's developing at the moment with the whole emergence of the Internet of Things?
Well, last year, actually, when we were in the IEEE meeting, the general meeting in Hawaii, it was the Vinton Cerf, as you know, the father of the internet, was there, and somebody asked if you are back into years 1975 or 80 when the internet started, how we will start? We will start the same way. He said, no, I probably will not take it IPv4, but I will start with IPv6 already. Because at the moment, it's like with COVID, we're trying to think in the beginning of COVID, we had no information. And actually at that time in the United States, they thought that there will be only mainframes and never will be PCs at home. So what for you created trillion of addresses? I think it was the circumstances. Right now, we believe that IPv6 will cover the requirements of internet usage for the next 50 years, 100 years, we know, but is how the internet will evolve. Many times I think, are we going to have in 50 years internet? Who knows? I mean, maybe other technology will come. So definitely for the time being, IPv6 is necessary. And I think many people call it new internet, myself as well, many times. This is not new. It started in the year 1999 was released by the IETF, you know, the Internet Engineering Task Force. So at that time, everybody thought that it will be taken immediately, but not even Europe. As you know, it's not emerging countries only, but IPv6 has been taken apart from the United States, who just finished the transition to IPv6 last year. I mean, it's a big step. It's not easy, and if the time continues to go, it will be even more difficult. However, it will be cheaper because now most of the equipment, software are ready for IPv6. But how can we think to go to 5G, artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence with IoT, with medical things, etc., if the infrastructure doesn't have enough addresses? So I think it's a point of, I think right now we are in the point that many countries, Europe, I'm participating in some meetings at ETSI, and frankly, countries are moving now.
So Rosa, you just raised a very fundamental issue in the sense that we can have all the wishes for a digital transformation of society. We all want to go to AI, make use of the blockchain and any other digital technology out there. But if I understand you correctly, if we don't take care of the very fundamental, then it's not going to happen. Is that right?
That's right. As I said before, exactly, you know, several countries like China, United States, and Japan. Japan is the country who's been going very, very fast on IPv6, and that was from 2000. They already had the city of Tokyo connected to IPv6. There even, I must say that even in Peru and in many countries that operators are moving, are transferring to IPv6, and they're not telling anything. And this is fantastic, because if the user do not even take care of the change, it means the transition has been gone. And I think are more than we think, countries and cities moving, transferring to IPv6. However, the majority of countries, not even in Europe, we have understood the process. But in this case, I think, and that's something I'm trying to sell very much into emerging countries. This is our opportunity, because we don't have, I mean, United States spent 15 years to do the transition to IPv6. Hasn't finished yet. It's almost 80%, 90% or something like that. But what happened with emerging countries and even developing countries, since all the equipments are already ready for IPv6, why not to start the leapfrog? Why not to move immediately? Because we don't have that many infrastructure to transfer. Start to build the new system, the new software, the new, everything which is new on IPv6 already. And not easy to pass message, but I think that some countries already think. But this will be an opportunity for emerging countries, for example.
Okay, it's good to hear that, the opportunity to leapfrog and move into the 21st century as a developing country. Mm-hmm. Now, so because we're talking in the context of we want to keep the digital technology accountable, specifically also the internet. Can you comment on how does a transformation to IP version 6, how does that keep the internet and technology accountable? Does it have a role?
Yeah, probably the major thing will be transparency, you know, to start to build the system. The government needs, you know, government systems, government framework, government platforms, and why not to go directly to artificial intelligence, to Internet of Things, but for that you will need IPv6. That will help a lot on the transparency way, because the way how these systems are built, they really invite a lot to transparency. However, transparency doesn't only, I mean, the systems are ready, but are the people ready? Politicians ready? And I think this is a big problem, because why in many countries we don't have really government systems up to date in emerging countries? It's because politicians or governments, they're not really interested to go in. And this is a big problem, because in one way they're not transparent, in another way the citizens are not allowed to use the new technology, the latest technology. They don't have facilities. I mean, why to have to go still to a lawyer to do some papers when you can really push it from your, you know, from your computer from home? And there's already a lot of developments in emerging countries, actually, but in the whole, they're not interested to do that, because transparency, it means is really, I mean, you know, as you know, corruption is, well, emerging countries, we are not a monopoly of corruption. Used to be, and now corruption is everywhere. And are the countries really want to show, want to share a lot of information with the citizens? I think that's not the issue.
Okay, so I'm hearing you saying basically two things, as if I summarize this. First of all, version 6 requires quite a big investment. So you need to be able to make that investment, but also I'm hearing you saying that actually as version 6 facilitates transparency, more transparency, you see that organizations or the powers that be actually try to push that back, because it's bringing them in a position where it's going to be too transparent, and it will allow a citizen to do it differently than with the current systems.
That's true. But actually, I mean, do we need a big investment today on IPv6? 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I will say yes. Nowadays, I think it's more than investment. We need willingness from operators, willingness from government to push for that. I mean, operators sometimes, if the users don't ask for that, don't ask, I mean, an user will never go to an operator say, can I have IPv6? That's the point. If they want better, a system which are faster, which are more effective, we have, and that is provided by IPv6 actually. And so then operators in general, especially I would say in emerging countries, which are not very pushy into these new technologies, because there is no return on investment for operators. And so why not to leave it for later and later? I think it also depends from governments. If the government will say really to the operators trying to really organize, make the planification for the future and see the importance. If the government will understand, I work a lot on sensibilization with governments, because sometimes you go to a place where you want to do the transition to IPv6 and you want to do some presentations, and you're really looking for the heads of government, for the authorities to understand what's IPv6, what is artificial intelligence, because normally they say, well, just talk to my engineers. And then I said, I'm sorry, the engineers, they already understood. I want you to understand, because this is whoever the authorities will give, will make decisions and will give the budget. So but they don't want to understand. They don't want. I think in some countries nowadays, you see the ministers to talk about technology. This is great when the politicians talk about technology, but the majority, they just don't do it because they don't understand, and that is really bad for the country, because if they don't understand, they don't make the effort to talk to operators or citizens, or so it's a vicious circle that at the end that is really lower down in emerging countries, and developing countries even worse. I mean, to go to the next step in technology.
Wow, so a word which you repeat quite a lot, it's understand or lack of understanding. So is then a simple solution basically educating government officials, educating society on what if you desire that digital transition, as we discussed, the consequence of that desire is you need to invest in the basic infrastructure. That's the message.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do, because as I said, it's not anymore expensive to do it, but this willingness is future. Do the governments think of the future? Latin America has been for the last 15 years at the highest point of GDPs, the most innovator countries, the most, countries that were really successful. Latin America has been successful for 10, 20 years. I mean, really going into business, investment, foreign investment enormously. But did our authorities invest in education, in getting technology, transfer of technology? Were interested in educating the citizens? they were interested in improving the systems, the government system, the digital systems. I mean, they have done nothing. Really, I'm very sorry for Latin America. I'm Latin American, I'm Peruvian. I'm really, really upset with that because everybody was saying that countries need to invest in the future, and authorities, they never heard about this, and Latin America is paying hard today because together with COVID, we have problems, a lot of problems because economies are going really bad. And of course, we will be laid down in technologies, and this is a big problem. And it's not only a problem for emerging countries and for developing countries, it's a problem for you developed countries, because if you start to see that the digital divide increase so much, it's like in the vaccination. The rich countries have all the vaccine, but not the poor countries. And then the problem is the virus, they fly in aeroplanes, they go, I mean, they will never solve the problem if emerging countries are not part of the whole process. The same in digitalization. If the digital divide start to grow more and more, the problem is not only for emerging countries, it's also for developed countries. So I think developed countries need to be more accountable about this, just the idea that you cannot live it like that. Let's say in healthcare, during the last year, the last 2 years during the COVID, you imagine how healthcare has been developed in developed countries, how the world has moved, how all of the new technology have been developed. Everything is going about 20 years of development. But what happened with emerging countries? They don't have the budget, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the systems, they are completely left out. And that is not possible. It's not possible for the whole world. It's not only for us, it's for the whole world. Need to be aware that if that continues to grow, we will have a big problem. Really, because we've been fighting for the last with the United Nations, UNESCO, and all the organizations involved about how to reduce digital divide. Suddenly exploded in only 2 years. But all the work done has been really back up, in fact. So we need to think, meeting developing countries, emerging countries will develop to find out how the solution. The only way is to dialogue, to sit together, to see how can we transfer the knowledge. In healthcare, we need to transfer the knowledge because internet is not only for, today, internet is not only for education, for transfer information, etc. It's about saving lives. Internet has really helped to save lives in many countries. China, even Peru, we had these extensions of hospitals to be able to, to have doctors virtually and helping that the hospitals were not collapsed. I mean, internet has really saved lives. So then we cannot take it anymore. I'm really calling for a really big meeting. We need to meet developed countries to talk about this transfer of knowledge. Otherwise, I think we'll have many problems very soon, because this virus is not the last virus that will happen. We may have other problems in the future. Emerging countries are not prepared for that.
It's very interesting to make that link between the development of digital technologies and the health of the planet as a whole. And you made a good point that it is related, it is connected. And I know you just last December, you published a paper without version 6, there's no digital transformation in healthcare. This is then the context you've written that paper, the need for, you could say, to hold you could say emerging countries accountable, please invest in the technology, but also hold developed countries accountable to share their knowledge for society as a whole, because it is connected.
It is connected. It is really connected, and it's, if we talk about accountability, it's not only developing countries which are really lacking of that, but developed countries sometimes they just grow, they do things without thinking of the consequences. And today the virus has really show all the deficiency of systems in Latin America, in Asia, even in developed countries. I mean, France, as one of the countries, the hospital have been attacked by hackers. They attack hospitals, clinics. Today they are attacking cities in Switzerland. There are about 2 or 3 cities that were attacked, and they were completely stopped, during the COVID. And of course, if you have to pay money or not to pay money, even developed countries are not really, they're not conscious about they need a solution. And so I think, but especially for me, it's a big thing. That's where I'm going very strong into healthcare, because I think healthcare has saved lives in my country, and I know that for sure. And with technology, but that is not understood by everybody. But in the other way, when I see the systems are being built during COVID in China, I mean, building a hospital in 4 days or 5 days, I don't know, having all the systems on artificial intelligence for detecting the virus, and helping doctors not to lose time with some of the clients, but also putting more efforts into COVID. And this has been happening thanks to technology. So, but then when I always think in Peru, we're not near to that. I mean, so how can we get this new technology, new doctor? Because today, I think in many countries, the healthcare has become really a business, and that is very dangerous as well, because they try, I mean, there's a lot of systems are coming out now, but why not to share this information with emerging countries? Are we going to continue lacking always and seeing that the knowledge is there, but it's not being shared? I mean, it's not just money. It's not just money. Today, knowledge is even more important than investment, really.
Got that. Rosa, a couple of last questions from my side, because you've made a very powerful statement why the world should think about investing in version 6, because we need that internet. Well, first of all, by the way, what is there any low-hanging fruit to get there? Is there a quick fix in your mind, which we can make people aware of?
Can you?
Okay. So is there a quick and easy solution we can implement?
Yes, I think so. I think so, because as I said before, all the systems, computers, routers, interfaces are ready for IPv6. The point is just to switch. But you cannot just switch to IPv6. You need a planification. You need to do training. You need to share the knowledge again, because it's very funny, but in my country, especially in the public area, there haven't been really a lot of investment for entities to move to IPv6. And I know a small entity which has 4 very young engineers. They always been thinking IPv6. They decided to get the training by online, not to have the trainers, because they didn't have the money, because the boss didn't know about they wanted to do this. They did everything available, like having the domain name, having the numbers, the IPv6 numbers, etc. And they decided without even telling the boss, because they saw the boss is not going to understand what is IPv6 and what they do for. And they did it. They actually contact the boss. the boss was very excited. I mean, very excited about the idea, especially because it was a very low-cost solution. This organization of about 100 people in Peru, which are, you know, in all the regions in Peru, now they are in IPv6. So that proves perhaps the system is not, I mean, I'm trying to get people, engineers, to help them to really test the system and everything is right, because they did have a very low cost solution. But this proves that when you want something, you can do it, even with a very low cost solution. You don't need to have a training for $50,000 or $100,000. Perhaps you can start slow, small, but for that we need organizations to add to this system. For example, we have the I mean, institutions in Peru, the chambers of commerce. I don't know, any organization could help that, you know, the cities or the small entities, the small companies to do the movement. You know, if you're small, will be easier. But you need the knowledge. Of course, you need really to train. Not everybody will do it like the example I'm saying. But it's not, I mean, if you want, you can do things, really. I'm trying to speak with organizations, entities, people, governments. But when I talk to governments, I always say, I'm sorry, I don't talk to your engineers. I don't talk because they know already the advantage. It's you who need to know the advantage. We need really to do that.
Yeah, so Rosa, you've definitely in this discussion opened my eyes what the importance and the impact is to moving to version 6. Because I must admit, I see the digital transition, or the wish for a digital transition, and I think you made it abundantly clear that we do need to work on the basic infrastructure, otherwise we're not going to get there. So it's also about education on all levels, that we understand what we need to do. So I want to thank you very much for bringing that point across, because once we invest in that very fundamental infrastructure, we can provide an internet for all, and hopefully also lead to developing, keep on developing accountable systems. So I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts and your passion on that topic.
Thank you very much. But actually, it's not only IPv6. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT also need this. I mean, they need infrastructure, but they need the training. They need everything exactly the same way. But you cannot build your house if you don't have the infrastructure. Is that, for me, is really important, so important today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And
Rosa
thank you
Maria.
for inviting me.